Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Okay, we're good to go, Perry.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Pledge
to the
allegiance
flag
to
of
the flag
the
of
United
the
States of
United States of
America,
America
to the
and to the republic for which it
which
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
All right. All right. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we, any discussion on the consent agenda? Anything want to go into deeper? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any against? Okay. All right. Went too far. Jesus. All right. Dutchess County BOCES Spotlight, the January Spotlight, excuse me, is in there for your reading entertainment. I don't know if anybody had any comments they wanted to make on that. The New York State Executive Budget Proposal. Did you want to, oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? Stuck in board docs again. Oh, there we go. Is there anything that needed to be said about this? Or there's no motion, right? It's
No.
just,
It's just information.
okay, yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the Dutchess County School Board section. All right, there's nominations and elections for BOCES board. There's 3 open seats and there's 4 candidates. 3 are incumbents, and then Karen Smythe is the new person or person running for the board. I don't even know. John, can you help me out? What do we do with this?
You can nominate anywhere between 0 and 4 people.
So do we have, I mean, do we have to actually like take a motion on each person?
No, just the board's got to just agree with whom to go forward with.
I mean, we only have the 3 or the 2 really. Karen and Ed sent letters. Now Rick.
Ed sent a letter as a president, not as himself.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Rick, I mean, the only one I can really talk to is Rick from Weebatuck. I think he was past president of Dutchess County School Board Association. I thought he's done a good job. I don't really know Ed or Rob. I don't know, John, if you. I mean,
Yeah, Robert was with the Wappinger board for could have been maybe 6 years, I'm guessing, something like that. And he's been on BOCES now, maybe about the same amount of time. I'm not sure he's with the Washington, the Wappingers board anymore. He may have left. And Ed has been around forever.
What's Ed's last name, John? What's Ed's last name?
McCormick.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's associated with the Arlington School Board.
Yeah.
He was president of Dutchess County School Board Association years back before me. And he was also president of the School Board Association, New York State School Board Association for 2 years. Yep. So, yep, he's done everything. So he's been there a long time.
and I mean, Karen, I don't know Karen at all. I don't know if anyone on the board does.
Oh, her letter looked pretty impressive, though. All the boards that she served on and.
Yep.
her
Karen's a Wappingers lady too?
Red Hook.
Red Hook.
Red Hook. No, I don't know her. No, I don't know her then.
I mean, to me, all four look, look like they're qualified, so.
Any thoughts from the board? I mean, I'd like to see Rick get nominated. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know Rob or Ed that well. John, what's your take on who would be?
You know, different personalities. I think they're all good for the board there. Sometimes you want to mix it up a little bit, so it's, I think all four are good. We'll have to figure out how to vote.
Harry, what's the term? 3 years?
I think it's 3.
I think it's 3, yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 3 years.
So this next board will have well, they're probably starting to do it now, but they gotta, they'll have a new superintendent because Dr. Hooley's retiring, so.
Well, and his deputy's retiring too.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, or for
Yep.
second in command or whatever you call him.
so that board's gotta find somebody new.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the other thing is I wasn't sure whether it was a really good time to introduce new people to the board, but then again, maybe it's the right time. So
We don't vote tonight. It's just about,
Yeah.
We have to have nominations by next meeting.
all right, I mean, just take a look. It really comes down to, do we replace one of the incumbents with Karen? I mean, that's about as simple as you can get it. And then which one? So,
She's the one, her name is familiar because she ran for state senate.
yeah.
That's why her name is familiar. Okay.
All right. Well, think about it, and at the next meeting, we'll do our, we'll put it together and figure out who. I'm kind of disappointed because it was brought up at the Dutchess County School Board Association that it would be nice to have a letter from each one of the members or each one of the candidates. And we didn't. So.
Perry, do they have a website where they might have a bio or a background or anything else that we can refer to?
I would think on Dutchess County BOCES they would have for the 3, not for Karen.
Right. Well, we have Karen's letter. Okay.
But I'll reach out to Kelly, or Cheryl. Maybe you can reach out to Kelly tomorrow and just say, it was requested that they give us a bio, a letter, something that sort of introduces themselves. I mean, everybody introduced themselves on the call, but that doesn't do any good for anybody but me. So we'll have to take it from there.
Okay.
All right. So budget update for technology.
So good evening, everybody. What we're doing with our budget updates is that we're going to give a general and broad overview of a particular department. So technology is tonight, and before we do that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to give you a status of our revenue, our 2021-22 revenue status report. So we'll go ahead and do that first. And I'll share my screen and give me 1 second. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so revenue status. We talked a little bit about expenditures and revenues, broad-based last time. We're going to delve into revenues just a little bit more. Not much. There's not much more on the horizon as we try to learn additional from the state. And as NISCUS and ASBO and the school board associations all do their individual analyses, we have some more information, but not a heck of a lot. So again, going back to services aid, this is something that the governor has tried to do over the past several years, and he's again proposing that all aid categories are going to be combined and not separately calculated in the future. So that might be okay for a lot of our expense-driven aids, but certainly not for BOCES or transportation or even building aid, because that will differ an awful lot based on both percentage of aid that we normally get, and of course expenditure. So as an example, you'll remember from last time, we said that we were going to continue to try to make many more BOCES purchases and use BOCES whenever we can in order to be able to maximize aid. And now Governor Cuomo is saying that that might not be okay, and BOCES aid will be just one of the other aids that's going to be inside the services aid. So he's basically saying that aids would no longer be expense driven. And in the future, the governor would be able to limit these aids in all of these categories as well, and try to seek control over that. So our increased spending we wouldn't necessarily be able and using our own destiny to generate increased aid as we were able to do that now. And in order to be able to move away from this, certainly legislative intervention will be required. And we would hope that in the past, as it was in the past many years, that it will not be part of the final negotiated budget. So there's a little bit of confusion across the state, and I'm confused as well. And we're wondering, why is STAR listed in our school aid runs? It never has been before. So, so for those of you who don't know, STAR is about school tax relief. And every year, our residents, if it's our primary resident, if our resident is using their home as their primary residence, they all get an exemption from STAR. In the past couple of years, it is now a credit for those who apply for it as a credit. And if you do apply for it as a credit, then you have the ability to continue to earn or increase that credit up to 2% every year. If you keep it as an exemption, it remains stagnant. So the confusion around this across the state is, why is it that STAR is now listed in our school aid runs? So there's some questions about it, and we're wondering, will the amount of STAR change if our actual STAR claim is different in September of 2021? So annually, I apply for our STAR. I make application for our STAR reimbursement to the school district on an annual basis, and that has changed now based on whether or not it's an exemption or if people are actually getting it as a credit later on. That's to say, a check from the state. So we're wondering if the amount on our state aid run will absolutely be able to change based on a future change in what our actual property values are. I just got a note that my internet is unstable. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. So one of the other questions that we're thinking about is STAR only in the state aid runs, and we're hoping that this would be true, so the state can show it in meeting its the federal requirements of maintenance of effort, and really it means nothing. So what that means is, in order for the federal grants from the coronavirus acts to be able to be accessed by the state really needs to be able to show its own maintenance of effort. That's to say that that the state has skin in the game and they're paying their own fair share before the feds will kick in money. So is it really that's just the state mechanism to show that to the feds and it means nothing overall? Or is Governor Cuomo trying to show every bit of peak K-12 state funding in one document? And that's why it's added. Just to do that without any end game feels improbable. So I'm just going to say that we're all kind of circumspect and we're all wondering and just trying to be careful and in that analysis. So what's going on right now in terms of thoughts, wondering what should come down the pike. Should we be in a situation that we should encourage all of our residents to make the change from an exemption to a credit reimbursement? That's what we're wondering right now. So I kind of shared a little bit of a difference. Right now, people would pay their full tax bill if they are new property owners because it is now a credit reimbursement and not an exemption for all new property owners. Governor Cuomo is trying to phase out the actual exemption. So what he's also done is he's halted, like I spoke about a couple of minutes ago, he's actually halted the ability to get increases on the exemption. And he said, if you want the increase on the exemption, well, you're going to have to get a check from me. And in order to do that, you now have to use the credit as the reimbursement mechanism as opposed to the exemption. So we're wondering if we should be a little bit more public about that and advocate to our residents that they should consider applying for the credit reimbursement instead of the exemption. And it's in their benefit as well because they will be able to gain up to the 2% maximum possible increase. And it would be beneficial for us potentially in trying to insulate the district from any future deductions if, again, Governor Cuomo is going to start considering STAR relief, school tax relief, as part of the aid that he offers. So just a lot of wonderings about STAR. We're in a situation that we're not used to, so we're just wondering what his end game is.
So we think we could explain it in language that, I mean, some of this stuff is it feels like a giant shell game. You know, they're going to get this from the feds, but then the state's going to take it back and maybe give it. And I mean, can we explain this to people at a level where they'll understand how it's advantageous to them? Or is it just going to be, we don't, you know, at this point, we really don't know because we're not sure what he's doing with our money?
Yeah. I would say yes, and we can do that simply, and we could even be, we don't even have to be political about it. It is irrefutable that it's in each of our taxpayers' best interest to do this if they choose, because they will continue to be able to get up to the 2% increase in the reimbursement. So we can speak to it just in terms of that. Simply enough. I mean, we could talk about the other potential implications, but Perry, yeah, I do think it's easily explainable.
Okay. All right.
So now there's this notion of a local district funding adjustment. So you'll remember last year we had a pandemic adjustment, and it was, I want to say it was around $123,000 to the negative. And basically that was where Governor Cuomo said, okay, we have this CARES money and we and what we're going to do is we're going to give it to you, but we are taking it from your state aid. So there is now this Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, and it's CRRSAA. And now for us, we now have an adjustment of $353,000, and he's doing the same thing. He's replacing the CRSSAA money, and we're getting that back. So we remain whole this year, and actually will remain whole a little bit better than last because we won't have to share it with any private schools. So, but the issue here that we're concerned about is, and I highlighted it for you to a little bit in last discussion, we're concerned that this is going to result in major budgeting issues, not necessarily in 21-22 during this current year budget process, but actually for the next one. And the reason for that is, and I'm sure you'll understand pretty easily. If the feds take away the money next year, there are no plans on Governor Cuomo's point to fill the gap. So at least none that we know about. So that's a little bit of a cliff for us. And excuse the. It looks like I didn't finish a thought in that final bullet. So there's actually a $500 million difference between what is across the state and what's being funded as to what is being really supplanted on part of the federal money. So unless he creates some mechanism for replacing that gap, every school district in Dutchess County, in the state that is looking at this new adjustment is going to have an issue for 2022-23. So we just have to be mindful of that and understand either that we're going to have to control spending even that much more, or we're going to have to find an additional revenue.
Ryan, if the Coronavirus Response Act, if that's for, these temporary expenses, I don't see why it should be a problem. I mean, you're looking at it like a, we get this money and we keep it forever. This is a temporary kind of stopgap kind of thing.
Yes, you're right. So on the 1 year budgeting piece of that, you're absolutely, let me say it better, not the 1 year budgeting. On the one-time expenditure, John, you're absolutely right. That piece is going to be just fine. So anything that we get in terms of funding, which we'll actually probably make claim to on the first CARES, not the FCCRA piece, but just that CARES funding, the grant funding, we're going to be okay there. The issue is with this new allotment of money, he's actually supplanting the in our case, $353,000 worth of money. And that's not for one-time expenditures. That's actually an aid piece that he is deducting and replacing. But you're right about the portion of CARES money. That's the other piece would be a one-time deal. Okay. So again, and this is this will look familiar to you. We discussed this last time, and just continued revenue concerns. We are looking obviously at the lowest CPI since 2016-17 at a 1.23. We're looking at the lowest tax-based growth factor in the county. I learned today for the first time that could change. So I'm hoping maybe we get an increase, but I don't think it's probable. And our preliminary calculation is that we have a tax levy limit of about 1.35%, which only allows us to raise about $340,000 in new money. So that will be another challenge on our revenue side. So that's it for the quick revenue update. Next board meeting on February 23rd, we will have Mike Ragusa and I will be doing a facilities budget presentation. There will be a cafeteria presentation as well. Obviously, that's not general fund money, with the exception of the interfund transfer to the cafeteria fund. So it will have some implication there. But that presentation will be done by Holly Hetty. And we've met as a cafeteria subcommittee with Mr. Shapiro and Mr. Rudy, and we'll be meeting again tomorrow in preparation for that. And then we'll have some more specifics on expenditure projections also on February 23rd.
I'm assuming that we're going to have to, basically go back to pre-COVID spending levels, come July 1, because, we've been finding ways to cover stuff, but, between the limited tax levy limit, whatever, and possible budget implications, and just hopefully we're on the mend. I'm assuming our plan is to get back to those pre-COVID levels at the beginning of the 21-22 school year. Is that,
Yeah.
and then work from there. But hopefully work our way down from there.
So those are going to be administrative discussions that are going to continue to happen before we bring options to the board about that, because really we're talking about staffing and to what degree are we comfortable returning to whatever staffing levels, and then we have to get the board's take on that, because you may say, listen, there's additional staff that we know that we want to be able to have, and we think that we should budget for that, and because of that, and because we're not able to wean off of that staffing just yet, maybe we have to think about piercing the cap for that reason. So what we will have the discussions administratively. We'll bring a whole host of options to you around what you may want to consider for the expenditure budget for staffing, and what the give to get is, and maybe the board says, listen, we're not in a spot where we can pierce the cap right now, and we're gonna have to find it somewhere else because we need this. There's a whole host of machinations, and that'll come out in our budget workshops with recommendations from the administrative staff.
All right. Any other questions for Brian before we go to Elliot? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Yeah.
Just going to get my slides up here real quick. So this isn't awkward or anything. Brian just talked about all the money we don't have, and I'm going to talk about what I need to spend it on. So here we go.
Sounds like my kids growing up.
I'll try to do a little bit better, but we'll see. Can y'all see my screen now? All right.
Yep.
Let me just move my everybody matrix over here. Okay, great. Thanks. So, obviously Brian talked about, that we're just not sure how much revenue we're going to have. For me in technology, it's a little bit different than some of the other divisions, only because my planning has to be, 18 months in advance, but flexible for every single possible model of instruction that we might entertain. So for the purposes of planning for next year, we're going with a modified rollover budget for the department. As everybody knows, I inherited the current year budget, was in place right when I got to the district. But we've made a lot of changes in the year, and understanding that there's, potential reduction in revenue or certainly limitations that would inhibit our ability to expand our spending. I'm trying to keep everything in line with our current budget. So we're going with a rollover model that just may be tweaked internally, but keeping the bottom line as close to the current year as possible. We're going to prioritize anything that's end of life to the top of the list. We're going to look at the instructional needs for every model. So like I said, the most technologically intensive learning model happens to be the hybrid model. It requires less equipment, less augmentation, less hardware, less software to do live instruction in person or remote. When we're doing them both simultaneously, it requires a little bit of extra in the way of hardware, software, technology, training, et cetera. So we're going to plan for the current learning model to perpetuate into next year, and that'll give us the most flexibility to pivot if needed once we're into the school year. We're going to start, last board meeting, I gave kind of that long-term look ahead of what my plans are for the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to start right now with the way that we plan and schedule this year's budget. So our anticipated infrastructure needs for 2021, the first thing up is our phone system. The district-wide voice over IP phone system is coming end of life, and that's almost every component of that system. So that's going to be something that we're focused on. Right now, we're using our E-rate money to acquire the network pieces of that, the switches and the routers themselves. We're going to look to budget for phones for classrooms, offices. We're also going to be looking at adding video phones that will integrate with our new video management system. And we're going to look at the bandwidth connection from Elm Drive to the main campus. So just this past couple of weeks, we expanded the bandwidth that goes to and from Elm Drive Elementary, back to the main campus. We're in a hybrid model right now, so the needs today may not necessarily reflect the needs of tomorrow. If that building becomes full of kids or has twice as many kids as now, twice as many devices, We just don't know what kind of impact that's going to have on the bandwidth capacity of that location. So that's another thing that we're going to keep monitoring. We may have to put some money towards that in the school year coming. So anticipated hardware needs are pretty straightforward, right? We need more Chromebooks. We currently have enough devices to cover about 85% of our students. On any given day, we typically only have 33% of our kids on campus. So we're fine right now, and we have a number of children using personal devices at home. In anticipation of all of our kids coming back, or the majority of our kids coming back, we need to have enough Chromebooks to supply all of them, because as we're currently constituted, from everything from teaching and learning to cybersecurity, we're requiring students to use our devices when they come to school. We are not what is called a BYOD, or a bring your own device district. That requires a completely different set of network configurations, and we're just not in a place to entertain that currently. So we need to bolster our Chromebook supply. Just as a point of reference for the board, when we went one-to-one in March, April, and very much in a rush, just sending every Chromebook we had home with our kids, and we formalized that one-to-one initiative at Millbrook Middle School in a similar way to the high school, we were anticipating a replacement cycle of 5 to 7 years for our Chromebooks. Granted, our older Chromebooks are making that life cycle, but that is potentially the longest life cycle expectancy for Chromebooks in Dutchess County. The vast majority of our neighboring districts are only expecting 3 to 4 years out of the Chromebooks that they're buying right now. So we have to start thinking about how do we expand our inventory and really look at our device allocation by grade level, by building, to decide how we're going to be able to support multiple grade levels changing over devices every year beyond just the 6th and 9th grade that we're doing currently.
Hey, Elliot, can I ask you a quick question? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely, go ahead.
When you were talking about the Chromebooks for the kids, like I only know from personal experience that my daughter goes to Elm, and before the pandemic never used a Chromebook. So is that because like in the future they're going to use them in school, or?
So yeah, let's talk about that. I was going to get into it a little bit later, but it's timely, I think, right now to jump into it. So no, it's totally fine. And we've had plenty of conversations about Chromebooks for your daughter as well. So here we go. Right now we have 33% of our kids on campus, right? If that number jumps up to 80% next year, if people are getting vaccinated, COVID is on its way out, but we're just not in a place where the governor is removing the ability for people to stay remote. If we have even 10% of our kids remote, our teachers will likely have to entertain some sort of hybrid instruction. And the way to engage the kids in the classroom and the kids at home at the same time is going to be through some sort of device. At least that's how we see it currently. That could change. But right now, if you're going to level the playing field and engage students at home and in person in classroom, the easiest way to do that, the most straightforward way to do that is through device distribution. If we get to a point where all the kids come back and the teacher says, we're not going to use devices for a while, that's okay too. But we need to be prepared that in a hybrid model where even a small number of our kids are home, we have to expect that the playing field is going to be leveled through these technology devices. One of the other things that we're going to look at, though, is if we stay with a 5 to 6 year replacement cycle, even a 7-year replacement cycle, that's replacing 2 cohorts worth of Chromebooks every year. That's a new device for every 6th grader or 9th grader. That's working right now. But again, we're not expecting the durability out of the new devices that we got out of the older ones. They're just not built as robust as they used to be. It's one of those classic, they don't make them like they used to, right? So what that allows us to do is really look at device differentiation by building and grade level. So one of the things that I want to engage our administration and our technology committee work around is, does the Elm Drive population need the same type of device that Millbrook High School does? When you ask the question that way, it almost seems like a logical probably not. But right now, everybody's using the same type of device or one of 3 different devices we have in stock. And if we're going to reduce the number of years in the replacement cycle, the upside to that is that we can explore real specific, building specific device differentiation. That may mean a whole different device at Elm, and you carry it K to 2, then you get to Alden, you get a device that's more tailored to what Alden needs 3-5, and the same thing with the middle school and the high school, because those devices would only be expected to last the duration of that student's time in that building. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where.
But just to follow, I mean, if we decide that, they're all coming back, that's great, but the decision has to be made. Are we abandoning remote as a capability? So if we have, right now we have the ability, even though, we have the ability to do snow days through remote learning. Are we going to abandon all of that? Because if we don't have if we don't plan for and have the Chromebooks with them, then that just comes off the table. And academically, I think that's where that decision needs to be made. Is that a policy that we are not going to support? I mean,
I would
it's something
agree.
we have to do now, but this is something before we start making decisions where, well, nobody under sixth grade needs a Chromebook. Before we make that decision, because it'll be easier and we don't have to buy the Chromebooks and all those, let's look at our academic policy and make sure that, the things that are coverable today are still doable or need to be done.
Yeah. I agree completely. And device selection, I guess the binary decision of whether or not we buy them and then what kind we get for which buildings. I mean, it's no different than the decision to renovate a building, right? Everything we do has to be driven by program. We have to understand the needs of the students and the teachers and what the plan is to educate them in order to get the right equipment in advance, right? So right now we're planning that devices are going to continue. I can't imagine a scenario where we completely move away from the one-to-one devices. We may not use them to the extent we're using them now, but I have to budget long-term to be prepared to have them, to offer them, so that we can keep this train on the tracks as long as possible.
Yep.
So other hardware, so besides Chromebooks, and thank you, Jennifer, that was a perfect diversion because I was going to get there later anyway. But we're going to look at our computer labs. So right now I have computer labs throughout the district that are relatively mothballed. Right? There's nobody here using them. They're not using them to the extent that they were designed for. So it may delay their replacement, but we really need to look at what we're going to use them for. We've had previous discussions about esports teams, right? I can retrofit one of our computer labs to be a gaming lab and we can use it for that purpose. We have to look at the curriculum needs. What is program requiring that's beyond the Chromebook's capability? As we bring students back to campus, hopefully sooner than later, we're gonna have to start really looking at what they need on campus in addition to the Chromebooks that they bring to and from home. Teacher devices, we're going to talk a little bit about where all the money that I asked for came from this current year with all of the pivoting that we had to do. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to replace as many teacher devices as we've wanted to. What that looks like for teachers going forward, again, that's a conversation we're going to have with the teachers, with the principals, with Caroline's team. We're going to really try to wrap our minds around what the expectation is around the teachers leveraging technology in classrooms throughout the remainder of our COVID, pandemic period, and then well after, to identify what the best devices are going to be to meet those needs. And the same thing applies to our staff. We're in a world right now where we had to very quickly adapt to continuity of business happening in a remote environment. And so the devices that we select, the equipment that we select for all staff, not just our instructional staff, has to be nimble and flexible to meet the needs of on-campus work, remote work, and just the general continuity of business model.
Well, and just one comment. I mean, in the past, before COVID, the district sort of got away with buying everything on the cheap, not worrying about, Chromebooks, and this is going to be over the top. I'm going to aggravate somebody, but Chromebooks were a glorified typewriter. And I mean, it was where they typed their papers. Maybe they went on the internet and did some research, but it was a glorified typewriter. I'm assuming our academic team is taking the learning that they've gotten so far. I think this, doing esports to try, I mean, if it really does draw some of the kids back into school, I mean, there's a whole ton of things, and it's not just hardware. I mean, I'm sure, Elliot, I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but there's so much stuff that we use the free version of, the demo version that we've been demoing for 3 years. There's so many of these things that we have. And then we're finding, there's a subcommittee that's looking at this with Elliot and Laura, that are finding these holes, and that's about as far as we're going to go into what the holes are. But there's huge holes in what we can do. And it's because we tried to do it on the cheap. And honestly, it's worked, but it's also, sort of coming apart now. And we're going to have to prioritize and then move forward with our infrastructure. Anyway, Elliot, sorry about jumping ahead on you.
No worries. Everything that we're talking about ties into what I have planned to discuss, so that's good for me. I just wanted to look at, okay, so software. So, and Perry, you just hit the nail on the head, right? We were a Google for Education district. I told you we were in line together today. We were using Google for Education, which is a free service. We realized that there was needs, capabilities. I mean, even something as simple as breakout rooms that we use in Zoom for classroom group work was only available through the Enterprise for Education licensing. And so that's just one thing in a number of advantages to the enterprise package that we saw a real need for and took advantage of this year. So that wasn't in the budget, but we made it happen. Brian's been great about helping us find ways to get the money we need reallocated. Ashley was really helpful in helping us through that process as well. Just moving the money to the places we needed it to do the things that we didn't expect we need to do. But there's all kinds of other software out there that really focus on student engagement. This is like at the very fundamental core of what we're doing right now is how do we know our kids are really engaged when they're at home? We talked about attendance, we've talked about esports, but at all of these things, the common thread is how are our teachers connecting with our kids? And right now, that's predominantly done through various software packages and platforms. And again, we're going to work with our principals, with our teachers. We're really going to peel back the layers of all the things we have. We came into the year with a package deal plan, a budget plan for the things we needed pre-COVID. And then during COVID, we pivoted. We made a lot of changes, adjustments. We brought new things. We kind of walked away from other things. But we found ways to enhance the instructional process through software. And now we have to look at it and say, okay, of all the things we used to use and all the things we're currently using, what do we think we're going to use going forward? It's a big question. It's going to take a lot of time to figure that out. But we're going to work through it the best we can. And again, our underlying driving concept is what's the best way to engage our kids, to connect our teachers and our staff with our children to support their learning.
Well, and we also can't, one of the things that came out at Dutchess County School Board at the last meeting was Wappingers, presenting their entire, I'll call it infrastructure, but it's their communications, it's their Facebooks, it's their, all the different pieces of their system. Now, of course, they've got an army, well, maybe a small army of programmers, and, they've just got the staff and the money to do it. But we're also asking our people, our parents who, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That announcement and a thing went out the other day and it never went out because I happened to be on the receiving end, and it got stuck in Google someplace. There's so many of these things. We're asking our teachers to communicate with parents, our principals, our administration. We're asking our employees to track their, here's when I did what, and yet we don't have the software to support it. Or if we do, it doesn't really work. So there's a lot of this, and it's not all going to show up, 21, 22, but we got to prioritize it, make it sure it's part of our overall goals for where we want to get to. And then, I'll sound like my broken record again, get a plan in place to do it.
Agreed. And certainly our communications platforms are part of our software process right now. We're in development of a whole new package deal, which I would love to present in the next few meetings once I know it's 100% off the ground. So cybersecurity is a big one, and I'm going to be somewhat vague on purpose because we don't exactly tell people how we take what security measures we do publicly, but I do think it's important for the board and the public to know that it is a priority in our budgeting process. We're looking at cybersecurity upgrades that are going to build in annual, semi-annual, and periodic assessments, both internal and external, of our cybersecurity systems. We're going to be moving towards more cloud-based filtering and monitoring. That's just to, when everybody was on campus, all I had to do was filter the campus. Now, 2/3 of our kids are not on campus on any given day, and we need to make adjustments on how we monitor and supervise their behavior in the online environment. So we're currently pricing them out. We're allocating some of our funds towards cybersecurity. We haven't landed in a place yet where we've selected the specific packages, but as the aforementioned subcommittee is going to overview the proposals and we'll land on something that I'm sure we'll come back to an executive session with the board and really give a deeper dive on what that's going to look like and what the board can expect in terms of our activities around cybersecurity. So I wanted to give you this chart because, like I said, we're using a rollover model this year, modified rollover model, which means, the bottom line numbers aren't really going to change much from last year to this year. But that said, I did come to the board a number of times this year and ask for money or for permission to spend money that was not planned for in the budget because of the pandemic. I wanted to take a moment today to share with the board what that movement of money looked like, because I think it's important to identify when we identify need, we also have to identify what didn't get done, right? Every decision to do something with finite resources means you're also choosing to not do something else. And I think it's important for the board and the public to understand that we had to pull money out of a number of different places to pull off the things we did this year. So if you look at the top, BOCES computer equipment, we upgraded infrastructures. I spent $110,000 more than we planned on this year. That was everything from the firewall upgrade, doubling our bandwidth, tripling our connection speed to Elm Drive Elementary, all the things that allowed us to go hybrid and go remote with the ability to host our staff on campus had to go into that $110,000. That money came largely from other budget codes where we would have otherwise bought switches and hardware, software, computers and devices, the staff computers I mentioned that I did not really replace this year, and the flexible contractual agreements. So the places where security assessments would live, the places where support services, network support services would live, all got reduced in favor of doing the things we needed to do. No regrets, because we really, had different priorities than when the board adopted the current budget last year. However, I feel like it was important to be transparent with where that money went and came from, just to understand that we're going to try to do the right thing with the dollars as originally allocated next year to the extent possible. But obviously on a long enough timeline, I can't keep taking money away from these categories and maintain the district in the condition it's currently in. So going forward, we're going to engage the technology committee, which is just a cross section of our constituency, to really get a feel for what the needs are next year. We're going to start looking at device differentiation. So we talked about that earlier, but just like, all right, if I'm going to go from 2 cohorts to 4 cohorts a year, what does that look like in terms of need and application? And I'm kind of excited about that, because I feel like if we're able to give our K2 kids a very specific type of device that meets their needs, our Alden kids a very specific type of device that meets their needs, I feel like in the long run, it's going to benefit the district. We're going to continue our comprehensive cybersecurity planning. We're going to have those audits done. We're going to be receiving the audit report from the State Controller's Office, which is going to help drive some of those decisions. And we're going to be in a much stronger, safer, better place to support our kids and our teaching and learning environments going forward, despite all the concerns about cybersecurity. And we're going to work on software. We got to figure out what our teachers need as they go into their teaching next year, despite all the things we don't know about what next year is going to look like. So there's going to be a lot of flexibility in our planning. But I feel like, at least from an instructional technology perspective, we plan for I'll say the worst case scenario, but it's really the most complicated scenario. If we plan for the most complicated scenario and what ends up happening is less complicated, it's a lot easier to go backwards than to do what we did this current year and just scramble to acquire services and hardware and things that we didn't have at our fingertips because we needed them and we needed them immediately. So that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any other questions? I know we did some stop and go as we went.
What was the life of the existing phone system? How many years?
I believe it's somewhere around 7, John, but I'll have to double check for you.
7 years on a phone system? Voice over IP phone system?
I think they went in 2013, if I remember correctly. Brian, do you know better?
Yeah, I believe it was the 12-13 school year that we went from the old IntelliPath lines to and did the whole infrastructure upgrade to voice over IP.
It doesn't seem like a long time.
It's not, but again, John, we've talked about our camera system. Anything that lives on a network switches, network routers, they're roughly a 5 to 7 year replacement cycle. We've done a lot of them this year, and even just the 1 year offset for the phone system is going to help. And I think that 5 to 7 year flexibility will help us spread these things out so that we're not getting hit with a bunch of them at one time going forward.
Have you started looking at new systems? I mean, I would think 7 years is not a long. That seems on the short. Oh,
We
boy.
have. We're trying to.
We picked
We're
the
looking
wrong
at.
phone system or what?
I'm sorry.
It sounds like we picked the wrong phone system.
Well, it's pretty consistent. I mean, we have a Cisco system now, and they're an industry leader in that field. We're looking at upgrading the Cisco system in pieces. There are some things that don't need to be upgraded. So we're roughly, I would say the budget number right now is around 45,000 for the system. It's not huge, and that includes telephones everywhere. That's every single classroom phone, office phone, desk phone, and all the network equipment that drives it. So it's not a huge number as network things go, but it is a full system replacement.
It needs special network equipment for a phone system?
Yeah, they have their own switches and routers for just the telephony.
I think that's part of the problem. In the last 10 years, the technology has changed very dramatically towards telephony. And the other thing is, we try to put this, we don't maintain things. We don't take, the piece that was old and replace it this year, and then the next piece the next year. We kind of ride it out until the whole thing just mushroom clouds. I have to believe that keeping operating systems, up to speed, keeping equipment when one piece of the system goes, out the door, go to, find the replacement, the upgrade, the next version of that thing versus just, let's let it go to end of life and then see what we do from there. I mean, I could be wrong, but to me, that's how if you make a little investment every year, it saves you from hitting this end of life where the whole thing's got to be thrown in a dumpster.
I agree. And that's kind of, if you remember when we talked about our camera system, right? We're going to buy a handful of cameras every year so that we don't have to do a system-wide replacement. We may have to do like the heavier stuff, like the servers might all come due 1 year. That happens. Same thing with the phones. If we look at the life cycle of the phones, we could start to creep in and phase in. Because our school budgets are not built for spikes. The peaks and valleys are a bad thing in our world. So the closer I can get to leveling those curves, the better for everybody.
Which I'll say it one more time, Elliot, and I swear I won't do it again, is why we need a plan, a long-term plan for these things.
Yes, sir. I am working on that.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Elliot or Brian?
No, I just want to say, Elliot, thank you. That was a great presentation. And, thank you for, I'm back here looking at your summary of the slides. Like you asked for the money and you explained where everything went. So, thank you for that. You asked for it and there it is. So thank you.
Appreciate that.
And
Thanks.
Brian, do you have, I know this is a ridiculous question, but do we have any sort of an outlook from the state on when they might settle how they're going to take our money?
What do you mean by how they're going to take our money?
Like, which way they're going to go with each of those, whether they're pulling all the aid back. Because Governor Cuomo says that state legislator can still change the budget. It seems like that happens every year. Do we have an outlook on when all that stuff is going to be settled?
Yeah, so some of it happens piecemeal and just in terms of the news, right? So we've been told that Anything that we've lost, we're going to be able to get back. We've been told that for this current year. And then there's still some question about, well, what about the end of the final quarter last year on our quarter, not the state quarter. But the rest, Perry, is all negotiable, and it will all be meted out only when, and we have had on-time budgets mostly in Cuomo's tenure. But that won't be meted out until something is approved, and I would say before April 1st.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Brian or Elliot?
Yes, so let me be cute and ask, is there a plan for a plan? I believe school boards are supposed to approve a technology plan once a year. And I don't believe we did anything for July, which means we have until June, I guess, to prove something. I believe that that's still the rule. So,
Yeah, there is a plan for the plan. I touched on it briefly at my kind of my tech update presentation at the last board meeting. But really what we're doing is we started with the central administration. I just had a meeting today with our principals to discuss the expectations around software and hardware planning and solicitation. That's the precursor to re-engaging the technology committee as a whole with the principals' feedback. I kind of want their feedback before I start, reaching out to teachers directly, just to follow the chain of command and the hierarchy, and really just engage the teachers themselves, get some student feedback, see what's working, and then I'll be able to package that to the board. So it starts with this year's budget. It really is kind of using the building blocks to establish what we need right now, and then off of that builds out the 3 to 5 year look ahead. So I'm taking the more capital-ish things that we did from the big systems, the network systems, the VMS, the wireless access points, the firewalls, and all those big things. And then we kind of go to the other end of the spectrum. We get really granular with the software and the devices that every kid touches. And then we fill the mid space in after that. And that's kind of what I'm going to plan to bring to the board as the school year wraps up.
so I would recommend that you look to what the law is requiring and establish that as your deadline.
Yes, sir. And rather than create, the one thing that I am doing a little bit differently is rather than creating a static 3-year plan, I want to create a multi-year plan that will be revised annually, just in line with exactly what you're asking for.
Thanks.
But one of the things that we have to do, and I know this is going off on a tangent, but we've got to put some real goals that, from the board in place. We've got to get real district goals, and they've all got to come together, because security and safety isn't going to come together without technology. Our academic goals we need to get those things together. We're going to talk more about that later on, but this, we can't just keep having a technology plan that is based on technology. It's got to be, especially like this year when we upgraded the video surveillance system. I mean, that's a big bonus to the security and safety plan. We need to keep doing that, but get them all aligned so that we know where we're going and it feeds into the financial plan. All right, anybody else? Anything else? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Where am I? Board president and vice president report. So from my standpoint, there's a couple of things. First of all, we got from Rick Keller, by the way, an offer to come in and do a short sort of educational presentation to us on child abuse, how to recognize it, what it really is. They do a board level presentation, which, I'd like to have them come in at a future board meeting and take us through. But that can also lead into working with the district. The second is this. So I think Cheryl's going to register the 5 of us for the evaluation workshop on the 8th, right? Is that what we have, Cheryl? 5?
Yes, there's 5.
Okay. And I'll hit the Dutchess County School Board meeting now instead of doing it separately. Wappingers came in and did a very good presentation on what they have done with their, I'll call it, it was supposed to be just communications, but they also talked about their HR system. They talked about, you know, how they were bringing in, even with COVID, they were having Zoom sessions with surgeons and lawyers, and so that their kids could see what is a day in the life of a lawyer. It was very, very good. Now, how good it is in reality, you know, especially those of us that have done this for a living, you know, you can talk about the good parts and kind of fluff over the bad parts, like the complaints, but it really looked very, very good. The interesting, I mean, we couldn't afford it. We couldn't do it. We don't have the staff to support it, but there are a lot of pieces of it and a lot of process that goes behind it, like having a small group of parents comment on, you know, the communication section, have people look at ways to make Facebook more, because they have Facebook, I think they have Twitter, but it's one consistent, at least this is what they told us, one consistent infrastructure across the district. So, I mean, as we work on this, this technology plan, one of the things that they've offered to do, and, I think we'll take them up on it, is sit down with them and go through like the live system and look at pieces that we should prioritize. They put a tremendous amount of money into their HR system and how they do recruiting and how fast they can, because they recruit, tens and 20s of jobs on a regular basis. We don't. So maybe that's not a high priority, but that was a very good part, a very good demonstration, a very good, very interesting section. We also had Dr. Hooley come and talk about the current BOCES project. It's all in court, and it's all being reviewed by lawyers, and they've been told not to speculate, but they did fire their excavating contractor. They're trying to figure out how to recover both dollars and time. There were a few comments about, number one of the sort of the suggestions was, well, we don't have to do all of what we were going to do. And there was some negative response to that, look, this is how you sold it, you got to do it. There was also some questions about, the actual renting of the other facility, and how is that going to be kept out of the, it's not going to come back on us as districts. So it was a very good conversation, although there wasn't much that could be said because, like I said, it's tied up in court. Then the last thing I wanted to talk about was really the work that's been done on evaluating the, putting together rubrics for superintendent evaluation and looking at the tools, really leads us to the next step, which is establishing our board goals. We've got our current one out there, but I think we need to get much more specific on what we expect from administration, what we expect, so that they can establish district goals that says by the 31st of March, 30th of March, I'm going to have this done. by the start of the school year in 2021, I'm going to deliver this to the board. And then, of course, we need to make sure that we we follow through on these things and people take ownership for them and responsibility for them. So it's one of the things I wanted to ask about that subcommittee that looks at, setting the rubrics and setting the tools or evaluating the tools. If that could be extended to really start fleshing out board goals, or not the goals themselves, but how to, what should we do? Do we need just a one retreat to do it? What is the process for setting it in place and in making sure that we have district goals coming from the administration? So I wanted to get your thoughts on whether or not you'd be interested in extending that subcommittee to look at how do we establish real board goals.
I think it's a good suggestion, Perry. It's a good recommendation. It ties into the superintendent's goals, the district goals, and then also maybe possibly I'll work with educational elements to let them maybe, help us have that dialogue and really assist us. We're working with them anyway, and have them maybe help us with developing those goals that could be, a good discussion and some good clarity for the superintendent for her goals as well. I think it's a good recommendation.
Is somebody have a radio on or something?
Sorry, it's mine. Go
Oh,
ahead.
all right. Sorry, Bo. I heard district, then I went, huh. So that was John, Chris, and you, Paul, right? We're on that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Us three.
Okay. So, John, are you okay with that?
Or why not?
Why not? That's what I like. Okay. All right. That was all I really had. Howard, do you have anything?
Just want to follow up on the superintendent's eval course that the 5 of the board members will be attending virtually. Pre-pandemic, I had the privilege of attending a live session, sit-in session, and found it extremely valuable. The language and the terminology that you'll learn about that's used on the eval, at least will put all our board members on the same page with the superintendent, so we all understand what we're talking about without any semantics with words. And with the super eval, there's a portion on the course that will cover how to use the super eval, which, as John said, is pretty self-explanatory, but they go into the nuts and bolts behind it. And I think that for the 5 of you that will be taking it, you will get a lot out of it. And I just want to, wish you good luck and enjoy the courses. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did.
Good. All right. Laura?
You're on mute, Laura.
Thank you. I try to once a day. I used to be 10 that I was mute. Now I'm just down to 1, so that's not too bad. Typically, my service goes unstable when I'm doing my report, so hopefully we'll remain stable and I'll be able to get through that without a hitch. I wanted to start out with just as January 31st, 2 long-standing staff members have retired. Arlene Looney, who served this district for 35 years, and Bill Yeager for 30 and a half years. Arlene worked side by side with school lunch manager Holly Hetty and the school food service team in making sure our students receive nutritious and tasty meals on a daily basis. The pandemic brought a whole other level to the work. Thousands of meals had to be prepared and distributed, and Arlene was there every step of the way. Her reach went well beyond the cafeterias. She was a student council advisor, assisted with fundraisers, and attended numerous district events. In June of 2020, she was awarded the Anderson Award, an award designed to honor faculty or staff who inspire children from all backgrounds and abilities. For over 30 years, Bill Yeager fostered the love and appreciation of science in his students, and I learned that many have gone off to become engineers and scientists. Bill has received numerous awards, including Teacher of the Year. For decades, Bill provided a welcoming classroom environment where students could grow, explore, and flourish, and where curiosity and creativity were encouraged and respected. Congratulations to you both from Millbrook Central School District family. We hope your next journey is truly amazing. I wanted to give an update on sports, but I see Rick is here and Elliot. So I'm wondering if Rick can just give us a brief overview of the status of sports right now. Our winter season has begun. And then Elliot, if you don't mind just talking a little bit about the possibilities around live streaming.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So boys and girls basketball is underway. Due to the weather, we've had a couple setbacks with losing a couple practices. So we were slated to open up with the boys on Thursday, but there's a requirement to make sure that you have 6 practices before your first competition. So the boys and girls are going to open up on Friday night. The boys are going to be home. And other than that, I've been working with the coaches to make sure that students are eligible each day in terms of attendance requirements and academic eligibility. So we're 5 days in, but we're off to a good start.
Great, thank you. And Elliot?
Don't worry, there's more snow coming, right, Rick?
I know, and I feel badly for the kids because it's a truncated season to begin with. So I hope the weather cooperates for the remainder of the month, but we'll see.
Thanks a lot, Debbie Downer.
Go ahead, Elliot.
No, I'll just say that, and this kind of circles back to when we're talking about, our communications and our interactions with our community, right? So with limitations on how many people we can bring in to watch our kids compete and play, we're working on live streaming for our sporting events. It's going to be somewhat low tech at first, but one of the things that we're working on is establishing official YouTube channels for the district for both our athletics and our central office administration, general purposes. So we'll be able to do, I'd say, any sort of extracurricular events, including board meetings. Like currently right now, people are watching this on our district clerk's YouTube channel, and she's been gracious enough to share that with the world. But we're going to try to depersonalize that a little bit with an official YouTube channel for the district and one allocated specifically for athletics. So Mr. Sipe has been a great help to me in troubleshooting that, and Mr. Hamill as well. We're going to be working on that this week, and hopefully our first game will happen on Friday and will be on YouTube. I say that knowing that I'm putting myself on the spot, but I'm pretty confident we can make it happen. So Mr. Sipe, I said it, now we got to do it.
Well, Elliot, I mean, we've had, it seems like even when we brought in a professional company, we've had YouTube issues or streaming issues. How are we going to sort of do something different? I mean, the graduation one was, just broke my heart, because that was one of the greatest celebrations I've ever seen. And then we had the rain on it about the people off site couldn't stream it. How are we going to deal with that?
So there's issues at play, and what we're going to do is we're going to plan for redundancies and we're going to simplify. I think, and I'll be the first to admit, I got very excited about a very complicated graduation setup that didn't go off the way we wanted it to, and I thought we planned it well enough, and it was a lesson learned and an unfortunate one. But what that taught us was we have to have plan A and plan B running in parallel. So what that'll look like for us is the district still maintains a Twitch channel. We don't use it for much of anything, but it's our fail safe for YouTube going down. We created a Google account for athletics. It's actually going to be Millbrook CSD Athletics. We'll have the links posted on the website once they're up and running. These accounts are active. We did troubleshoot them this week. We tested it. We actually did a brief live stream. It was not published because it was really me and Mr. Sipe sitting in a conference room. But we were able to get that stream out there and see that it did hit the cloud. So we'll use our YouTube channel as our primary. We'll have the Twitch channel as our backup. We're going to use Zoom, which has been proven to work. So again, we're not going for really fancy platforms right now. We're going to use the Zoom platforms that we're accustomed to for board meetings and just kind of lean into what we're good at, get it up and running. And then, this is one of those things. It's a perfect example of once we give it to the community, I can't imagine we're going to ever want to take it back. Once grandma gets to watch, her grandkids play basketball from Arizona, we don't want to take that away from people. It's going to be kind of cool to have it. We want people to get excited about it. We're going to be tracking to see how much usage we get out of it. And like I said, we'll go into it prepared with the backup plan so we can flip that switch and stay broadcasting.
Ellen, are you going to announce the play-by-plays like the wide world of sports?
I certainly can, but I heard Mr. Freed is excellent on the microphone, so I will defer to the extent possible.
Maybe our first sporting event should be you and Rick just playing like Crazy Eights or something. Stream that out and see how it goes.
I wouldn't have a shot, but I'll participate for the fun of it.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Laura.
I just want to say, just on the sports side too, we're expecting, or maybe not expecting, guidelines over the next couple of weeks, changing guidelines and guidance. And so we hope to bring some information to the board on the 23rd in regards to fall 2 and spring sports. So stay tuned. On the COVID-19 side, there are 3 items that I have to share. There's now a revised pre-K 12 COVID-19 toolkit, which is now posted on our website. It reflects the most recent changes by the New York State Department of Health, things like quarantine being 10 days now and not 14 anymore. Now, once a week, I am receiving a preferred notification for essential workers that new vaccination appointments will become available. I receive these alerts and then I push them out to staff immediately, and then staff can go online and try to get an appointment. This past week's appointments, I think there were 600 available, were gone in under a minute. So it's very frustrating right now for folks, but the county's just asking for everybody to be patient, because hopefully as more people get vaccinated and more doses are available, it won't be so difficult to get an appointment. And the third part, which was a surprise to me this week, I received a notification from the county that we were allotted 10 vaccination appointments for this Saturday in Dover. So I sent out the alert to staff, and the first 10 folks who responded, their names were submitted to the county, and they received a link today so that they can make their appointment in Dover on Saturday. I'm not sure what next week will bring, but we'll see and hope for more opportunities for folks to schedule appointments. On the equity side, as you know, we've been working with Educational Elements. Paul was talking about them earlier. They're also working with us for strategic planning, but I just wanted to give you a little update on our equities work so far. There is great interest in collaborating with other districts in the county around equity. As a result, BOCES assisted in creating our first equity consortium with Education Elements leading the way. At this time, our partners in this work include Red Hook and Dutchess County BOCES. During our Dutchess Equity Consortium kickoff last month, we received timelines, created team structures, and were introduced to the consultants that each district will be working with throughout the process. Our consultant is Alon Bryce Ballin. After the Equity Consortium kickoff, Millbrook's Equity Project team, consisting of Caroline, Mike Sotaro, and myself, had our own kickoff with Alain. I have to figure out how he says his name. I say it every way, hoping that I hit it right. During this time, we identified members of the leadership team, which includes members of the project team and our administrative team. So when Education Elements partners with a district, it goes through 5 phases of equity work, which includes inventory. When they visited us last time, they explained a little bit of this, but I think saying it over and over again sort of gets us used to the language and the process that we'll be following for many months. So the inventory is where the firm learns as much as it can about the district. The other phases that follow are connect, include, create, and action. The leadership team is currently working on part 1 of the inventory phase, which is completing their own leadership equity inventory. This inventory includes 4 parts: leaders' interactions with others, leaders recognizing identity privilege, leaders upholding or reinforcing the dominant culture, and leaders' management style. During part 2 of the inventory phase, each leader will identify 5 to 8 stakeholders for a survey. The purpose of this survey is to collect feedback and reflections on how we lead with for equity around awareness, strengths, opportunities to create inclusive and equitable outcomes. This is surely exciting and brave work, and I need to applaud our leaders in really putting themselves out there, because this work requires vulnerability and trust in each other. And I will continue to keep the board updated on our progress. Lastly is the pandemic planning update. As mentioned during a prior board meeting, Governor Cuomo signed into law Chapter 168 of the laws of 2020 that requires public employers, including public schools, to adopt a continuation of operations plan in the event that the governor declares a public health emergency involving communicable diseases. This means that district safety plans, which we have posted on our website, must now include protocols for responding to a declared public health emergency involving a communicable disease. This plan is due on April 1st, 2021. There are a number of deadlines between now and April 21st, including the review of the draft plan by our unions, MTA, MAA, and CSEA. And right now they're reviewing them. It's in progress. Then we post the draft plan on our website, and it's for a 30-day comment period. And we are going to start that posting on February 22nd. After that, the safety committee reviews it and offers feedback and possible revisions, and that's on February 24th. Then on March 23rd, we're going to come to the board and seek approval. The final piece is posting the plan on our website on April 1st. So that's what I have to update you all with right now. That's all I have to report for now. Thank you.
Laura, you said something in the beginning. You talked about the vaccination and quarantine, and did something change? Like I didn't hear what you said. What did you say? What was that about?
So there is a new toolkit. It's an updated COVID-19 toolkit for grades pre-K to 12.
Okay.
And that's posted on our website, and it reflects the newest updates from the New York State Department of Health. And one of them is the quarantine. Quarantine used to be 14 days, and now it's 10 days.
Okay.
One thing, and I know we've talked about, look at a plan, then a week later look at it and go, well, let's see what's changed. We need these plans versions so we can go back to a previous version and say, oh yeah, I see that. But we also need them in some sort of markup mode where, deletes are still sitting there, comments are made, additions are identified. And then of course, when those things are approved, they can be released. But we've got to get out of this where we made those change. No, we made those change, because it's so difficult to keep track and even identify what's been changing.
Yeah, well, we haven't updated our reentry plan, if that's what you're talking about, since the last time we had the conversation. This district plan, though, is the Governor Cuomo for the communicable diseases. That's just a chunk that we're going to bring for review by multiple groups. Right. And then we're going to embed it in the district plan.
Yeah, but as that document is created, there should be, a version 1 that's locked in.
Yeah,
and then version 2 should have the markups in it. And then when that seems acceptable or is voted on or whatever, and this isn't just for this one, but it's for any of these, policies and documents and whatever that we need to review and then comment on, make changes to, and then re-review. We need to find a way to make it so we can just look and say, oh yeah, version 2 does have the stuff that I was talking about.
Understood.
Okay. All right. Committee update. This is one.
Can I interject?
Yeah, sorry, John.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much for saying that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, this is one. So the committee update, the facilities committee, we pushed this out from last week because it was like a day later than the board meeting. So Claudia, you want to take us through that?
Sure. Brian, you wanna?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, what are you seeing right now?
We see it now.
It's in PowerPoint.
Okay. Please hold.
You need hold music, Brian.
How's that?
It's fine for me.
Yeah, sorry.
You gotta make it the whole screen. It's not. It's just. I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, it's yeah. It's on my other screen. Sorry.
Don't worry about it, Brian. I think we can see it.
So here it's proposed capital projects for the inclusion in the 2021-22 Millbrook Central School District budget. So there's been 2 meetings so far. I unfortunately wasn't able to make the first one, but I made the second one, which was last week, I think it was, on the 29th. So it was me, Jen, Chris, Brian, Mike Sotero, and Mike Ragusa, and Laura. Oop, now we lost it all, Brian.
Yep, I did that on purpose. I'm gonna fix this. Is that better?
Yep, there you go. There you
All
go.
right.
Yeah.
So there was 2 proposed budgets. The first one is the $175,000 project, which would be the creation of a secure vestibule at Elm Drive, a secure vestibule creation at the side of the parking lot at Elm. So it's not the main entrance; it's to the side one where the parent drop off is. This will include site work for ADA accessibility, and this proposed budget also includes excavation, exterior walls construction, windows, roof structure, new doors, electrical, mechanical work, access control, walkway replacement, and site restoration. So that was the first budget.
So
Brian, do you want to show?
Claudia,
You want to show the screen?
How's that?
There you go.
And I want to thank Mike Ragusa. So he's been out plowing all day, and he made sure that he got home fast enough to be able to eat something and join us. So if he'll be able to help with questions, and Claudia, he'll be able to help on the explanation of some stuff too.
Yeah, so I'm gonna because this took me a little bit to see what this is here. So where you see the 1.12 slope, that's going to be the new ramp that's going to go down into the side entrance of the school. So does everybody know where we're talking about first? So in the circle there, where the parent drop off is, or the big parking lot in the back there, the side entrance into the school. So that's where that is. So right now there is a little bit of a slope. So they're going to have that redone to have the right pitch to go down into the new, I guess, the new entrance into the building, which would be, oh, there you go, Brian, right where Brian is. So there would be a door put on the outside there. The person would walk in, they would stop right in the middle. And then on the left there is going to be the window, and where the person would be sitting is inside the green in there. And once they're let in, then they're going to go, once they're let into the building, go down, Brian, down. Yep, there you go, in there. So now they're in the hallway there. So if they were to go left, they're going into the school. If they were to go right, they're going down towards the offices down the stairs. As we have right now, as what the school has right now, is through that little door there on the right there corner, Brian, is the elevator that goes down for the ADA accessibility right now. To go down, the wheelchair elevator is in there.
So right now, the front entrance, if I remember right, doesn't have an elevator to go up. So, but you can still come in the side. I mean, it's not a secure vestibule, but I mean, it's a door.
So
But
the students are going to still go through that. Only the guests, only somebody that has an appointment to go and see whomever it is at the school. This is the entrance that they'll have to use.
So the students will still go in the front door,
Yes.
what I consider the front door? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And then there's always room for, so this little green box there is going to be the office for the person, the gatekeeper there, so to speak. And then, there could be possibility for future offices behind that. So there'd be a door there to go into there and down the hall and so on.
So, hey, Mike Ragusa, how deep and wide is that the vestibule?
It's about 8 by 14, I'm thinking.
Okay. I mean, is that? Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many guests we get at Elm, but is that?
Oh, you mean the vestibule? I thought you meant the office. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, that's about the same thing. That's about 7 by 14.
It's almost like the middle school, Perry. It's very close in size to the middle, maybe a little smaller than the middle school, but it's around that.
But do we get? I mean, well, I guess you'd probably have more people coming and going at the middle school than you would at Elm.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then the outside doors are new. They would get a new lock, electric lock, so they could be buzzed in. And then the second set of doors would be brand new, and they would have the electric lock also, so they could be buzzed in.
And when you change that slope, Mike, does it affect the amount of or the way the parking and circle works up there?
No, because down in the corner where you see the little wall, down, Brian. The little wall right there.
Yeah.
That first spot on the other side of that wall is handicapped, and the car spot ends. You see the dotted line is the first walkway. That's the walkway now. That's the back of the car. So now all we're going to do is move it from right at the back of the car. It's going to be moved over, I think, around 10, 12 feet out towards the parking lot more. And they're going to regrade it because it has to be, I think, an inch per foot slope instead of the ramp that's there now, which goes, it's probably 6 inches per foot.
So you don't, that ramp that you're seeing there doesn't like dig into the actual parking lot? That's just still, you know what I mean? Like,
no, because no cars park on the out. I'm pointing at it like you could see what I'm pointing at. Sorry. No cars park in that space, like where the handicap parking is. And then on the other side of the parking lot, some cars will be parked there. But in the middle of the parking lot, there'll be no cars parked there. So across from that, maybe 12 feet away from there, there'll be your first car parked. So that'll be accessible from wherever you park in the parking lot.
okay.
So what's nice about this, Perry, is over there where this glass structure is where the green is
Yeah.
that it's already like a little jetty, so to speak, and they're really going to put up the one wall on the outside there. It's like an existing space that's like almost like a dead space that they're now utilizing. So I mean, I think it's good.
Okay.
Mike, the doors, when they open, are they going to be handicap push button, swing open automatically once they're unlocked, I guess, or you know what I mean? When you push the button, if you're handicapped and in a wheelchair and it swings open for you?
We don't have that now anywhere.
I know that, but
We
I
could
know you don't
probably
have
add
it.
that. We could probably add that in.
I'm sure when you do, it's going to have to be secured somehow. You know, you can't just push the button and have it open for somebody because it's going to be a security issue. But
Right.
Or maybe
Could
it's,
it be the person in the booth opens it that way?
well, yeah, I mean, if you had a
Yeah.
button that just notified, like with a camera that showed them the person out there and they could say, I'm here for so-and-so, they could hit the button to open the doors, but you still need something from the outside where you like you do with the middle school, you go up and you push the button and it tells them you're there, or you used to do it that way.
Right.
So just like at the middle school, the whole purpose of that secure vestibule, and even the one that we created in Alden, was that even if somebody gets in here,
Right.
immediately everybody is safe because this second door will not open until it's activated by somebody in the office, and that's after all the reference checks and everything's happened.
Mhm.
And then, but to Howard's point, if it is somebody who is unable to access the doors because of a handicap situation, that person would have to come out and assist that person, unless we
Right.
did do exactly what he said with the push button access.
But it would have to be push button from inside the office, not inside the hallway.
Yeah, I don't know how since this is not a apple for apple, since you're reconstructing something, you'd have to really, the engineer would have to really look at the ADA compliance laws.
All right.
So this is like 5 by 16, $175,000, huh? I get the regrading and everything, but just like, wow, it's hard to believe. Can I ask a question about the visitors? How do visitors know where this new hidden front is? How are they going to understand this?
There'll be signage.
Yeah, there'll be signage. We'll let everybody know, I guess, on the website and
There'll be signs outside, like main entrance or visitors entrance with a I
right,
don't know, sign.
right.
It's actually easier to find for new parents if you pull up into the parking lot, as long as there's signage. You know, I remember going there for the first time. I didn't know which entrance to go into. So if you're pulling up and parking at the top, you're going to see the entrance. So I think for newer parents, which is what we have in Elm a lot of times, it'll be easy.
The harder part though is really dealing with, I mean, if you park in there, first of all, you take your car and, it's life into your hands, because I mean, the turning radius around way some of the people park there, you're really going to have to, I don't know how we get people to do a better job of parking and driving, because that circle is not that big.
Well, the only people that park there are visitors.
Well, yeah. I mean, you get grandparents, day, parents, the concert day. Hopefully someday we go back. There's a lot of people that show up for those things. That's why I was asking why, does that pathway go into the parking lot? Because
No, I think everybody will be happy once it's done. It's not invasive. It's not like that at all.
And this was I got to give kudos where this was just a great collaborative effort. So thanks to the board members of the committee, and Chris and Claudia and Jen, and Mike Sotero joined us as well, and shared from a programmatic standpoint that this works really well, and even considered that maybe in the future he would want to consider this, since it's in the center of the building, maybe this becomes the office space. That's the current art room, and that's why you see a future door cut here as a possibility for his planning. But he felt like programmatically this worked really well. And we also had Mike Harris, of course, he was in person the first time, and then he was there via Zoom, and of course Laura was joined us as well for this meeting and brainstorming. Claudia, you want me to move on to?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, thank you, Brian. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So the next proposed budget, the $100,000 project, would be to secure the vestibule up at the high school, have a building management system upgrade up at the high school as well, and to fix some of the concrete, the concrete site work to start fixing some of the cracks in the sidewalks. So that would be part of the proposed budget number 2.
Now, is that concrete site work, is that going to deal with that ramp out there?
Yes, that's what they're talking about.
$100,000
For all 3, right?
Really?
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not going to be the entirety of the ramp. Like, it's not going to, remember where you were highlighting the railing and the crack that goes down all the way from the railing? It will not be dealing with that. You're right. That is going to be that's going to be part of a capital project. That's going to be a heck of a lot more money than that's going to be part of our 5-year plan. but it will get to a lot of the beginning, the front of the building, and portions of the cracking on the ramp itself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if they could fix that, all those, plus that big ramp for 100 grand, sign them up, tell them to start tomorrow. All right. So when do we think, I mean, have we had somebody look at that? I know that's not what this is about, but have we had somebody look at it to see, you know, what's the app, you know, the maximum amount of time we have before that whole thing falls off?
No.
Okay. I think that's, we at least need to get an engineer in there to look at that thing and say, look, you got a couple of years, and then, you know, thawing and freezing, it's gonna blow the whole side off of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Claudia.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's it. I'd like to thank Brian for helping me out with this, and the rest of the team for meeting and going through this. It was great.
And Mike, what's the building management software upgrade?
So I've had a couple of people come and look at it, and it's how do you say it? It's outdated itself. We can't get new control valves to work with the system that's there. So it would have to be upgraded so we'd be able to use the control valves and stuff we have. So if we have to change stuff, we can get new stuff to work with it. And I've gotten a couple of prices so far just to get an idea to make sure that it was doable in this project. I got a few prices from a couple of different people. And the only thing we really didn't get any pricing on is the concrete. We went by square footage with the engineer. But I have gotten some prices with the upgrade of the heating, the building management system. And I think it's something that really needs to be done there. And then moving the front door to secure vestibule, we'd be moving the doors that are there back 12 feet and adding a teller window and a couple of things there.
And Elliot, you're on this building management system to make sure it's secure and all those good things, because, you know, that's one of the latest and greatest points of attack. So
Yeah, I mean, Mike and I have talked about it. A lot of these things need to live on virtual servers, so they'll have to be a piece of that I'll get involved in with Mike, and then to whatever extent I can support the rest of it, you know, as needed, I'm available. So.
okay. I just say make sure that at some point there's a review. Part of the review process is getting Elliot's clean bill of health on the security part, because we're going to blame him if it goes wrong. So he might as well have a role in it. All right, let's see here. Anything else, Claire?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
You're
Claudia,
welcome,
Great.
Claudia.
Thanks
and
to all
Thanks,
members.
Jen.
And
You're
Claudia,
welcome.
thanks for your leadership on this. This was great.
I
You
do
like
have a
that
question
PowerPoint?
for-
I did the PowerPoint.
I could tell.
Try it again.
Nice. Brian, did you hear that?
Claudia, I do have a question for you and Brian. Right now, the current handicapped entrance is the long ramp, correct or wrong, for the high school?
Yes.
Okay. With this project, and I don't know if you can do it.
Oh, Howard, let me
Have
just
we-
get
yeah, go
clarification. The long ramp is, I don't know if that's what I think that's just for access, because I don't think that gets to 1 to 12. Because it's all at grade, all the entrances for the high school are at grade. I don't think that's an ADA accessibility issue.
Always when we had something going on at the high school, we have signs that we put handicap, like when there's a play or something big, we put signs out in front in the circle of handicap parking only, and we park the handicapped people right in front of the front doors.
Okay. So
Whenever
they'll
we
be
have
able-
something big going on.
They'll be able to go in through the front door with the
Right.
vestibule and everything else. That was
Right.
my point.
Right. We always do that because the handicap spots are way up in the corner of the parking lot.
So is there any reason we even have that big concrete ramp?
Graduation.
I think the reason it appears it's for bringing equipment into to the back of the band area and the auditorium. I think that's the reason.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, one of the things is you have an engineer look at it, but do we need it? You know, I mean, maybe it's just as easy to get a big old jackhammer or just put it, you know,
Well-
close the fence up at the top and the bottom and be done with that thing.
Well, it keeps the kids out of the roads
Yeah.
when they get off the buses, they come down the walkway, cross over and come up the ramp to the front of the building. I mean, there's no other way to get to the front of the building, and that's better than steps.
All right. Well, just like I said, I get an engineer to look
To
at
look
that
at it.
because that
John,
one
do you
track
know
was
why the
huge.
ramp was there when John, you were on the board during the time period the high school was
Yes.
built?
I was there, yes. I do not recall about the ramp, but I recall why it was built out that way. That actually cost a pile of money. And the proposal was, at the time, seriously, someone said, well, before that was come up with, the thought was people were going to dress and the actors were actually going to walk down the middle of the aisle in the audience to do their getting changed.
Wow.
So we said, that is crazy.
Well, like I said, I mean, just have somebody,
So
get somebody to take a look because
they had it on that back hall and stuff like that. I
Mhm,
was one of the advocates for that because it was just it was a nutty design without that. And now I don't know about the ramp. Around that wraps around the front. I don't know that. I don't recall.
I mean, I got to believe after this winter, with the amount of snow and ice and crap, we need somebody to tell us, you know,
Yeah,
that
at the
it's
time,
okay.
they actually dug out. They dug out right below where the stage is a huge amount of stuff. I think they overdid it, and then they had to end up putting stuff back. And maybe that's why we have a problem.
Yeah, it could be true that it's just so high that they needed to be able to have a stabilizer in there to make sure that there wasn't any version of a cliff.
There
So,
was actually a small little bit of talk about actually putting storage underneath the stage, and that was, I guess it cost money, so much for that, right? Yeah, I guess. Probably would have been very, very handy to have it too.
yeah, we'll get someone in there and take a look at the structural integrity of that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
So just moving forward, just looking for board conceptual approval to be able to finish out the drawings and get this up to SED for approval for our 2021-22 budget. And the earlier we start, the quicker we get into the SEDQ and the line for SED for the state education department, and hope to be able to get as much of this work done over the summer as possible.
It just both of these vestibules were called out in the safety plan.
They were, and that's actually the exciting part about one of the exciting parts about this. So our district safety team had this recommendation, prioritized it more as a long-term thing, because obviously when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, you have a realistic expectation about being able to get it done. The exciting thing is inside of 3 years, this board will have appropriated funds to make sure that there's a secure vestibule in each of our 4 buildings.
Yep. So does anybody have an issue with us giving conceptual approval? Okay. All right. Then I guess you got it.
Thank you.
All right. The next one is the refunding bond. Brian or Laura, you want to just give us the 10-second version of this, especially for the people listening?
Brian, you want to take that?
Sure, I'm happy to. So we had an opportunity, as you know, if anybody's been able to pay attention, the interest rates are pretty extraordinary, and the same would be true for bond rates in terms of competitiveness. So we have certain of our bonds that are callable, which means that we are able to basically refinance. So we are seeking to refund our bonds. The resolution that you see is from Bond Counsel. It's very, very wordy, but it includes all of the legalese that's required for a Board of Education to be able to refund bonds. And upon your approving of that, we're estimating that we will save about $96,000 for our taxpayers over 6 years. So that'll be about $16,000 a year for the remainder of paying off those bonds. So it's a wonderful opportunity that costs us not, well, I don't want to say it costs us nothing. That's the net savings that we're anticipating. Obviously, there are costs to do that, whether we're going to be having a meeting with Moody's because we're going to get a new credit rating. Obviously, we have to hire a financial advisor to do this. Well, you already did hire one in Rick Timms, so there's some soft costs involved there. There's also some other underwriting costs and obviously our bond counsel. So, but all told, that all in there, we still will gain that $96,000 of savings.
So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Thank you for the work.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
I think you're keeping your eye on it. That's good, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay. All right. Do we have any questions, Cheryl, from the public?
We do not.
Okay. Future agenda items. I don't know why this is going so slow. Next week or at our next meeting, we need to do this is the plan right now, major items. Get the BOCES board nominations. We need to do that at the next meeting. We need to go over the departmental budget presentation and how that ties into the general budget preview. We're planning on doing a food service presentation. So hopefully we'll have, after all the work you guys have put into to analyze this and hopefully improve our ability to control it. We'll go through that. Is there anything, so then the budget development, you guys know, we have to continue through this process. We want to start talking about the process and timeline. Hopefully that John, Chris, and Paul can take us through a proposal for that. And same thing from administration on district goals. What's the timeline? How are we going to do it? And then approve the public health emergency plan on the 23rd, or review it and hopefully approve it. So anything major missing out of this?
Perry, I just want to mention one thing. We were talking about the YouTube. Section 9 is now, there's a company called Local Live that has been in Westchester and Putnam now for over 3 years. We use it for our graduation last year. They come in and work with the administration, with Elliot, basically. They would work with putting a camera in the auditorium, the gym, and the football field. Everything is streamed. It's a link. And the link is on our website. And whether we're playing at Tuckahoe or playing at Edgemont, all the parents have to do is hit that link.
Okay.
So for this virtual time, it's been unbelievable. And the graduation we held was also live streamed to parents.
Nice.
So we've had no problem with it. And the person who started the company is just mentioned to me today that they are starting to go into our section at this time. So it's both for athletics and academics. We use it for concerts now and everything else that we could possibly use it in. So the cost, what we're paying is about $15,000 a year. But to me, it outweighs, one kid, 2 kids, 30 kids. You're waiting to see your child get a diploma and something cuts out.
Yeah.
So I've used it, and I'm not pushing it because of the person who's involved with it. I'm pushing it because I know it's worked and I've used it. So, Elliot, if you want to talk to me about that, let me know. I could have you speak to the representative from that company and see what you guys think. But to me, like I said, all 3 spaces are covered. There's 1 contract fee. They have a mobile unit where we're now training kids that if a school doesn't have local live and they're using YouTube, our kids can go over to Hastings and videotape, and it sends it back to our. So right now, with us being limited with no fans to basketball, all our parents can click on their phone at work and watch the game. So it takes a lot off of the limitations, especially now. It's still going to take a transition time for COVID and everybody get their vaccines. We're not going to be anywhere back to normal for total fall athletics for next year, just my opinion. So if you guys want to look at that with me, I can give you the company rep, have them come up and meet with the AD and with you, Elliot, and figure something out. If you want to look at that, I would look at it because to me, YouTube, Perry, I agree with you, is not reliable.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Local live, you guys can check it out.
Mr. Tobin, if I could just comment real quickly. So I am aware of Local Live, Kevin Devaney Jr., and I've myself watched many sporting events that his company has broadcasted. So I appreciate you bringing this up for the good of the order. So I just wanted to thank you, I guess, for allowing us to perhaps look at that as a potential option down the road. And I just wanted to share that working with Elliot, I'm pretty confident, although obviously I'm not the tech guy, so I'm really leaning on Elliot a lot for his support. But we had actually scheduled a meeting with Wappingers because they actually had a fall season and they YouTubed and live streamed all their games successfully. So fingers crossed it will work for us this winter in this abbreviated season. So I do thank you for that, but I'm pretty confident in Mr. Garcia that we're going to have a successful live streaming winter season.
I'm confident in Elliot. I'm confident in you too, especially with your video last year you did for the kids. That was great. And
I appreciate
listen,
it.
there's no cost for YouTube either, right? It's free.
Right. So that's the thing, right? So that's the thing. It is
But
free.
I mean, the other side of it is, there's only so much we can do with the staff that we have. So, we're going to have to prioritize stuff and, maybe we need to have help, from places like that. I mean, if this is like streaming our ceremonies and our sports is like a #1 issue, then, then we put all our focus on it, which gets us back to the whole board goals and district goals. If it's something we really want to do, but there's 7 other things that Elliot and his staff have to do before they can get to this, then maybe we need to look at help. But that's something you guys need to figure out in this overall plan, because you're only going to have a certain amount of money. So I guess spend it wisely.
Sounds good. Tune in on Friday night and we'll let you know how it goes.
All right. Anything else on the future agenda items?
Yeah. There's a topic, Ed 2D, is it something like that? Law, which I know very little about, or not law, but I don't know if it's regulation, what it is. It was supposed to be a big hoop-de-doo, and I have not heard boo about it. And I guess just what do we need to know about this? How does it affect us? Unless you
can jump in on that.
If there's a online dummy manual, I'll be happy to look at that.
So I'll be very brief. EdLaw 2D is about data privacy and securing the personally identifiable information of our students and staff. It is the underlying principle of so many of our cybersecurity initiatives, and my, it's on me for not calling it out by name, but it is certainly driving a lot of what we're doing, both in cybersecurity protocols and in our data management. We're looking at things like how we transmit information internally, that we only use single identifiers. So what that means is I'll send an email to Mr. Sipe about student 12345. It will not include that student's name because we don't want multiple things in the body of one document identifying a student. It's using secured pathways to transmit data to the regional information centers up to SED. It's how we communicate with each other. So it is part of everything that we're doing, and it will be woven into the technology plan as considerations for everything that we do is EdLaw 2D compliant. And one of the things when we buy software, for example, those software platforms and packages have to be EdLaw 2D compliant. We buy a lot of it through BOCES, which does the vetting for us, no matter which BOCES we get it from, whether it's directly through Duchess or cross-contracted through another entity. But it's a big part of what we do. And I'll be more mindful to call it out by name going forward, just so everybody's understanding that that's a big part of the rationale why we're doing things a certain way.
All right, thank you.
All right. Yeah, I think we're okay for the board expectations. So do we have a consideration? Where is it? Consideration of an executive session for discussion of the employment history of particular people.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right. The only thing I'm going to say before I call for a vote is there's no motion in the agenda item. So we need to make sure, Cheryl, that we get the actual motion in it, unless my board docs is messed up again. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, send us off, Cheryl.
Okay, bear with me 1 minute.
Yeah, we need.
Caroline.
Yeah, we need Caroline. I'm looking.
Caroline's going to do the report out of the profiled.
Okay.
Your profiles.
Have a nice evening, everybody.
Night, Brian.
Night, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you, Tom.
Good night. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rick.
Night, Rick.
Bye, thank you.
Good night, guys.
Wait,
Nope. Hasn't come through, if that's what you're gonna ask.
no, but Elliot you don't want Elliot in that one, right?
No.
No.
All right, hold on. Oh, he left. All right. I saw him leave and I thought he went into the breakout room.
Is that a virtual background behind you, Caroline, or are you in a padded room?
It is not a padded room.
Now that's fun.